Warning. The system has become unstable.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Welcome back for another installment of whatever it is we're doing here. Hey, so it's not a video or movie reaction channel. It's not a music reaction channel. It's a satanic channel. So movies and music and politics and everything under the sun is subject to a religious interpretation, right? So that's what we have going on here. So let's do that. I'll do a little ad lib like I have done, I think, on the last movie thing. And other than that, I do have a script to run with so that I can try to keep it concise for you and give you the best delivery that I can try to offer. So here we go. We're doing Disclosure Day, people. Disclosure Day. Okay. So yeah, I am a movie buff, and yet for the last several years, Hollywood has developed almost nothing that or really most film fans actually want to watch, let alone pay to watch, and certainly not at the cost of the theater expenses versus streaming new releases on one's personal devices. Now, going to the movies is not a hardship for me by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't want to pay a cent for garbage. And, let's just be honest, we've had a lot of garbage in the last 5 or 6 years, and so there you go. But recently, my wife and I, we went to see the biopic Michael. It was excellent. There are movies that I enjoy so much that if I need a nap in my recliner on a rainy day, I can always put them on as a cinematic sort of white noise. And because as I intermittently nod off and wake up, I'm just guaranteed to enjoy whatever snapshot of the moving picture I catch in a that I catch in between those cycles. So, two such flicks are Jaws, and the last of that, it's the fourth iteration of A Star Is Born. After experiencing Michael on the big screen in movie house surround sound, it too is now in that celluloid category of would-be comfort food. I mean, so I'm going to add this in there. It's not in my little script. So my wife and I have to say this. My wife and I did not grow up in Gary, Indiana, but we were both born in Gary, Indiana, and we were both born in the same hospital as the Jacksons, including Michael Jackson. And so we were also, my wife and I began dating in middle school, and at the time, Michael Jackson was one of just the biggest things in the world, and so living right there on top of his home plate and just youth and music, culture, and all that kind of thing. It was just larger than life. So for us, it was a great movie. It was great music. It was done fantastically well, but it also had a lot of real personal significance, memories for us. So it was just excellent. So. All right, so a couple of weeks ago, the wife and I went to see Obsession, and it's an uninspired, but it was a fully entertaining afternoon popcorn party for the two of us after dining out for lunch on a Sunday afternoon, or Saturday afternoon, I think it was. Then last week, we went to see Backrooms, featuring the fictional sheriff in the newly streaming dark horror comedy Widow's Bay. I want to add this, it's not in my notes either. We're really big fans of The Americans. I think his name is Matthew Rice, R-H-Y-S, something like that. Anyway, the guy that plays Philip in The Americans, Elizabeth's husband, which that on-screen couple, they're actually a married couple. We love that show, and we've seen him do a couple of things. We've seen her do a couple of things since, but I haven't really seen him do anything that was sort of a breakout or really excellent, awesome thing, and seen him having fun. And Widow's Bay is just fantastic. It's a true dark comedy, horror, gothic. Well, not so much gothic, but a horror comedy, and it's just hilarious. It's not campy. It's not spoofy. It's just funny. It's dark comedy. And to see him in his element, and I hope it's a success because we love it, and I'd love to see at least a couple more seasons of it. So that's fantastic. But the gentleman that plays the sheriff in that particular show is the main character in Backrooms. So that film, Backrooms, satisfied my expectations, and it presented a widespread mimetic topic regarding interdimensional portals, connecting parallel universes, and/or the issues of disrupted space-time. To me, it was therefore reminiscent of the YouTube videos allegedly uploaded in 2027. You may have noticed, people, it is currently 2026. So, allegedly uploaded in 2027 that showcase an individual claiming to have awakened there and then in a hospital bed, and seemingly shoots footage showcasing a world devoid of human beings or even other living creatures like birds in the sky. Now, I'll tell you what, I guess I had never shared that with my wife. And so when I saw just the trailer for Backrooms, and I saw the trailer, and maybe someone was talking about it. I can't recall, but I just watched a little bit of something, and I was like, "Holy cow! That reminds me of this guy that I just explained." Anyway, so I've watched some of those videos, and they're something. They are something. I mean, this guy's in hospitals and train stations and police stations, and there is nobody anywhere. And I don't see birds in the sky. I don't see dogs running down the street. I mean, it could be AI. It could be a government PSYOP, which is part of the theme we're talking about today. It could be a couple of different things. I'm not saying that it's a guy in the future or in a parallel universe or something, but it very well could be. If you know anything about quantum physics, theoretical physics, all of that's within the realm of possibility. But it's just truly haunting to see it. And when I saw the trailer for Backrooms, and it's not exactly like that, and then we went and did a little deep dive on Backrooms, and I guess that started with a internet meme, and you got to check it out and do your own research on that, because I found it fascinating. I don't know enough about it to do my own take on it, but I was definitely enjoying the little bit of a ride that I took on that one. Again, I thought of this other guy, or this alleged guy in the future. So where did I leave off? I'm sorry. You just gotta really check that out. I mean, that is just, if that's your cup of tea, interdimensional portals, space time, and all that kind of thing, as it is mine. I think you'll find it really, really interesting. Let me see. Okay. Oh, so subsequently, yesterday, on June 13, 2026, we took another Saturday afternoon matinee, and we went to see Disclosure Day. There's a backstory here. It's hilarious, but I've already kind of gone off a couple times, so I'm not going to give that to you. But it's maybe I'll share it in the future. It was hilarious. But I've been looking forward to this particular movie for a while. Backrooms just sort of like fell in our lap. Michael really just fell in my lap. I can't believe I hadn't heard any buzz about that. I mean, it was almost like the day of. I was like, whoa. So we went to see it. Disclosure Day, I've actually known about for a while, and I've known about the tie-ins that we'll be talking about here today, and I just like Spielberg movies, and I like big epic movies. So I've been looking forward to that. So, okay. Excuse me. So we just went to see that yesterday. Later on June 19th, which today's June 14th, so we're projecting into the future, kind of like that time travel thing. We will venture out for the upcoming release of what appears to be, vis-a-vis its trailer, an epic exercise in our suspension of disbelief by watching The Death of Robin Hood. Now, everybody has like the Man in Tights version of it, and Robin Hood and his merry men and all that kind of thing. But remember, if you know anything about the original, it's the outlaw Robin Hood. So, it's Hugh Jackman. It's and they're the gals in it from Killing Eve. There's another show. If you've never watched Killing Eve, there are 3 or 4 seasons. We didn't care for the last one, to be honest with you. We watched it. It was okay. But like the first couple of seasons are just off the chain. And there are 2 main female characters in it, because they're sort of conjoined twins, as it were. They're attached to the hip in the storyline. But the one that is just amazing, in my opinion, she's in it too. So great cast, and then just the trailer of The Death of Robin Hood looks epic. If it's half as good, because sometimes the trailer, you see the trailer, you don't need to see the movie. You've got it, it's good. That's the best parts. Everything else is just dull and boring. If it's half as good as the trailer, I'm going to be a very satisfied customer. All right. Collectively speaking, and reasonably anticipating that The Death of Robin Hood will not disappoint my current hopeful expectations, I am keeping my fingers crossed, hoping that movie magic produced by Hollywood is once again back in style. All right. So, as for Disclosure Day, drum roll, that's why we're here today, people. I have been awaiting the release, as I just noted, of this particular film for months. Simply viewed as a work created by Steven Spielberg, I was fairly certain that he would maintain his reputation for offering audiences a gripping cinematic experience, if nothing else, and that alone is worth the price of admission. Additionally, there is all the buzz about supposed governmental disclosure of non-human biologics and non-human technology being reverse engineered in an otherworldly instantiation of crony capitalism, advancement of a new and improved international arms race. In pursuit of maintaining and or attaining socioeconomic primacy as a global hegemonic superpower, which is certainly rational and reasonable, but, there's a larger conversation to be had. Within that would-be governmental paradigm shift regarding so-called UAPs, in other words, unidentified aerial or anomalous phenomenon. It has been widely speculated by both new media and legacy media pundits that the call for full disclosure regarding UAPs and the movie Disclosure Day are an interconnected PSYOP. Let's see, I'll just move this to the left a little bit, and that's going to help me a little bit. Alrighty then. So, a PSYOP, or psychological operation, creating a consensus view and or a simulacra of consensus reality as a means of propaganda. It must be remembered that a potential PSYOP and or dissemination of propaganda, it must be remembered that a potential PSYOP and or the dissemination of propaganda are not inherently indicative of nefariously conspiratorial deeds perpetrated by unscrupulous actors. They may well be so, but the terms are intrinsically neutral pertaining to such definitional connotations. Hence, whether or not the call for full disclosure in Spielberg's 2026 movie are legitimate manifestations of our unique zeitgeist, or possible representations of a big lie distraction shifting the public focus away from domestic and geopolitical machinations. Oh my goodness. I have to remember to look at that. They are nevertheless thematically intertwined. Not the least of the reasons involved is the combined reports that certain American three-lettered agencies, ABC, 1, 2, 3, it's a Michael Jackson 5 reference, three-lettered agencies utilize Hollywood filmmakers to propagate specific public opinions. Augmenting that conspiracy theory is the adjacent allegation that Spielberg has himself engaged in such governmental cooperation. For instance, the fictional French scientist portrayed in his classic sci-fi thriller Close Encounters of the Third Kind is reportedly modeled after renowned French computer scientist and ufologist Jacques Vallée. Vallée is considered a pioneering scientific voice in the discussion regarding whether or not there is sentient non-human life within the universe and or whether or not they have been credibly observed by human witnesses. Moreover, Professor Diana Pasulka has publicly noted that Vallée has asserted that alleged non-human beings are arguably satanic. Pertinently, this theme is not an uncommon one, even expressed by the likes of Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. but it is one typically expressed with consternation by professed Christians like Mr. Vance. Antithetically, as a fellow San Francisco resident, Valet was a personal friend of the late founder of the Church of Satan and author of the Satanic Bible, Anton Szandor LaVey. Note: as a matter of full disclosure, I too was personally associated with LaVey and am a former priest of his religious organization. Thus, I am not referencing Valet's affiliation with him as an effort to discredit him on this reported satanic disposition, on this overarching topic. Instead, that reference is intended to highlight the fact that his conclusion is one shared by those friendly with as well as enemies of Satan's one-time terrestrial ambassador. I also want to note, which I don't have here in my notes, but I want to say here, I'm a fan of Vice President J.D. Vance. So, when we were in the election season for the presidential election, the last cycle, and suddenly people were acting like they don't know this guy. And he's like, he's an unknown quantity, blah, blah, blah. He's so young. He's this, he's that. He has a beard. Oh, my gosh. He's from the Midwest. Oh, my gosh. Well, he had a breakout book, Hillbilly Elegy, which is on my shelf and I love. And I know I used to have it next to Redneck Manifesto. I don't think I do currently. No, I see a Redneck Manifesto over there. I no longer have them side by side because I'm always rearranging my library. But then that breakout book, Hillbilly Elegy, it's an autobiography, became a smash hit Netflix original film. It's a great movie, and I think the world of the guy, and we have surprisingly a lot of backstory that crisscrosses, and so when he was brought on to the Trump train as the pick for the vice president candidate, and then they won, and now he's our sitting vice president, and I hope for next 8 years of a President J.D. Vance. As a Satanist, I have nothing but the highest regard and respect for him as a gentleman, and I'm not at all concerned with the fact that he considers supposed aliens to be demons. And moving forward in here, we'll touch a little bit on why that sort of thinking does not actually bother me from at least a theoretical scientific disposition. But again, I just wanted to say I'm a big fan, and suddenly we all like, oh, we never heard of this guy. It's like, okay, yeah, we never heard of him. With the foregoing said, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. That movie would be Disclosure Day, just in case we've lost track of that. It fairly represents the sort of spectacle that paying audiences have gone to movie houses for since the inception of the film industry. For viewers unaware and or uninterested in its potential spiritual, political, and or propagandistic psychological implications, they are more likely than not to still walk away from it as a satisfied customer. We'll circle back to that. Within the competing ideas about its alleged ulterior motive for release, there are overlapping and mutually exclusive theories that are, given known facts, entirely plausible. Opining which, if any of them, are therefore true is beyond the scope of this review essay, because such possible pontification remains subjectively speculative. Some say that the movie is an altruistic tool meant to prepare the human population for an imminently approaching non-fictional disclosure day, far superseding the present trio of evidentiary files and assertions accompanying them released by the Trump administration. Others warn that the film is a weapon meant to soften the battlefield in what some, including the late PSYOP Lieutenant Colonel and Satanist/Setian thought leader Dr. Michael A. Aquino, may define as a top-down mind war. Mind war was actually, throwing this in, this is not in my writing, Mind War was originally a paper he did for PSYOP, I think it was for the Pentagon, and then years later he expanded on that theme and published it as a book, which of course is still available through Amazon.com. And to this point, and I'm not getting anything out of that, I'm just telling you, if you want to go read it, go read it. To this point, it has been rumored for several years by some new media and legacy media influencers of public perception that the civilian population will soon be subjected to a staged alien invasion as a pretense for instituting martial law and justifying the effort to establish a one world government. Among the list of additional notable theories linking the movie with current affairs is also the simple notion that Spielberg is merely capitalizing on the news cycle hype to successfully market a product already within his creative wheelhouse. I want to back up a second. So the staging the alien invasion to institute global governance and all that kind of thing. So again, I wrote it, so obviously know it. And for years I've been seeing the different news reports about it and speculations about it and memes about it. And I believe it was in the beginning stages or somewhere in that time frame of how shall we put this? The manufactured body karate. It was there was a meme I saw. God, I wish I could think of the imagery because it was just hilarious. I don't know if it was like, I don't know. Of course, they had little green men with the big eyes and the big head, and all, the grays, right? They had the grays, but there was more to it. But it was something about the whole pandemic or the dem panic, and instead of the alien invasion, somebody saying to the other, or maybe it was one alien saying to the other, like, "Oh, I thought it was going to be alien invasion this time. I thought it was going to be aliens. Oh, it's a pandemic. Oh, okay. Well, so, yeah." So, is it an altruistic getting us ready for the great big reveal day that's going to change humanity for the better, and we're all just going to dance around and kumbaya? Or is it a weapon to subjugate us, or is it just good old-fashioned capitalistic exploitation? I don't know. You choose. Whether or not it is just a movie open to entertaining hair-splitting is ultimately irrelevant to me. However, playing the game of semiotic interpretation with the understanding that cinema can be and often is a symbolic medium, I will note the following selected observations for your possible contemplation. So, semiotics, for those of you who do not know, is when we utilize or interpret symbolism in linguistic terms. So, we could go down that rabbit hole, but you would know if we played that game right now. We'll do that another time. But that's what that means if you're curious about. Martha, what was that word he used? Those familiar with the ancient astronaut theory popularized by the Ancient Aliens TV show will be familiar with the following well-founded but obviously debatable premise. Allegedly, the gods, angels / watchers, demons, and sky people documented around the world since the dawn of extant recorded time are descriptively consistent with what the U.S. representative from Florida named Anna Paluna Luna has defined as interdimensional beings in relation to the UAP subject of so-called non-human biologics. As a matter of hard science, this is a metaphysical, air quotes, parentheticals. It is, as a matter of hard science, this is a metaphysical topic steeped within the field theory of theoretical physics. So, in the Christian New Testament, the theme of speaking in tongues is relevantly explained as the spiritual gift of a Christian metaphysically utilized to spread the gospel in a foreign language that is received by one or more hearers capable of translating the message for its intended audience, coming into contact with the otherwise unintelligible evangelist. It therefore has nothing biblically to do with the ecstatic gibberish modeled by hysterical holy rollers. Whether or not this recorded phenomenon must be interpreted as a would-be gift of the Holy Spirit and or attribute of some individuals downloading linguistic data, we cannot deny the documented evidence of its manifestation. That is to say that within the rare but statistically significant context of reported possession, autism / idiot savants / neurological anomalies, and or psychic downloads of something akin to what some religionists refer to as the Akashic record, there are seemingly inexplicable examples of people presenting purported knowledge of past lives as would-be evidence of reincarnation, astonishing skill sets demonstrating mastery of complex matters like playing classical piano compositions by ear, as well as instantaneous fluency in a foreign language that they have never been exposed to. This topic is obviously relevant to the aforementioned field theory, but a meaningful examination thereof is not an appropriate undertaking within this limited vehicle. Of note here is the fact that we have a male and female experiencer in Disclosure Day that were alien abductees at children. Representative of a sort of sci-fi Adam and Eve, in the movie, their names are Daniel and Margaret. Margaret, like Phyllis. Stella. Stella. Okay. Representative of a sort of sci-fi Adam and Eve. Itself a notion familiar to the broader topic at hand regarding the alleged seeding of Earth and or biologically engineered humanity. One of the two, is transformed into a conduit capable of such feats as channeling the language of a particular non-human biologic. That protagonist is our... What did I say? Did I write the wrong thing here? Capable of feats of channeling. That protagonist has been... So it's Daniel. Daniel's the babblefish. So Daniel's the one that translates. I think I wrote this backwards. Okay, so Daniel is capable of channeling the language of a particular non-biologic. That protagonist is our metaphorical Adam. Our allegorical Eve is transformed. Did I do that backwards? I am really. Of note here is the fact that we have a male and female experiencer in Disclosure Day that were alien abductees as children, representative of a sort of sci-fi Adam and Eve. Itself a notion familiar to the broader topic at hand regarding the alleged seeding of Earth and or biologically engineered humanity. One of the pair is transformed into a conduit capable of such feats as channeling the language of a particular non-human biologic. That protagonist is our metaphorical Eve. Okay. But they both channel, so I got confused. I apologize. Our allegorical Adam is transformed into a human babblefish. I got it right all along. Our allegorical Adam is transformed into a human babblefish in the jargon of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the books, people, not that horrible movie adaptation, and can translate her alien messages into his native tongue of American English. So that's right. So, I mean, they're both channeling in their own way, right? But she sort of like channels, like the old school spiritist or spiritualist or whatever, the table hoppers, jumpers, and whatever, blah, that kind of thing. So, all right. And then he translates. Alas, as the film reaches its climax, a non-human biologic speaks to our new Adam, and he passes the translated message in English to our newscaster, New Eve, who then presents it to the whole world glued to the relevant broadcast feed to their TVs, computers, and smartphones. I apologize for getting confused there. Footnote, people. The term sci-fi was coined by Forrest J. Ackerman. Relevantly, he was a well-known friend of Anton LaVey. Let me say that again. The term that we all know, sci-fi, as applied to film, TV, and books, particular genre of literature, right? Particularly contemporary literature, but is a term that was coined by Forrest J. Ackerman. Relevantly, Ackerman was a well-known friend of Anton LaVey and an apparent member of the Church of Satan. So, Ackerman was also a so-called honorary member of the Church of Satan's schismatic splintered sect known as the Temple of Set. He also maintained contact with LaVey's now deceased grandson, Stanton Zaharoff LaVey, late into his own life. Well, I guess sort of late into both of their lives, but particularly late into Ackerman since he was so much older than Stanton. All right. As for the film in review, it is interesting to me that biblical angels are etymologically known as the Watchers and or the Messengers, terms utilized even in cultures outside of Judeo-Christian lore in relation to the so-called sky people. As such, our cinematic watcher does indeed convey a message to humanity. Yep, certainly does. All right. Moreover, a recurring theme in biblical text is the appearance of a so-called prophet acting as a sort of town crier, prophesying, which is to say, professing some message as a conduit for a higher intelligence. In Greek philosophical metaphysics, as well as the biblical corpus, we may call this voice of God, the Logos. In less archaic and or esoteric language, we can think of a college or university professor speaking the professed wisdom of the academy as a pedagogical message to those pupils, i.e. disciples, that are initiated enough to receive the message as a resonantly tuned in frequency occulted between the professorial transmitter and apprentice receiver. Biblically, readers of the Christian New Testament are told that not everyone that hears will understand, but that those with ears to hear the good news gospel will hear and receive it as a life script action plan for followers of the way, which are the which are the terms that Christians in Christianity were known as before and even well after they became known as Christians and Christianity. Symbolically, then, it struck me when, as the film's crescendo was reaching its zenith, that the would-be antagonist resigned himself to humanity's fate of disclosure and sat down to passively witness it. Okie dokie. So, doing so, a camera eventually panned around him and came in for a close-up shot that, for the first and only time, presented the actor with a profile image that was arguably akin to Spielberg's own visage from that combination of angle and lighting. So again, it's not like he was his twin, people. I'm not suggesting, I'm not suggesting anything ridiculous, but anyone, and probably most of us, right, or at least superficially, are familiar with what Steven Spielberg looks like, and this just, struck me. It's like, oh, wow. He looks like Steven Spielberg from this profile, if intentional, it is potentially an evocative Easter egg revealing the filmmaker as a prophet of a methodical, non-fictional disclosure day. Interpreted as a Hollywood version of the game of telephone, Spielberg is thereby hypothetically positioned as the logos for a hidden or occult source and is simultaneously the source of the scripted alien messenger that fictionally passes the message along through the medium of our pair of protagonists until it is finally delivered to us, the real-world viewing audience, i.e., those of us intended to consciously or simply subconsciously or unconsciously receive the message. All right. AI Google searches and even YouTube reaction breakdowns of the movie already posit myopic explanatory renderings of the motion picture's message. This is not simply that the message has not been perceived, let alone correctly referenced by relevant technology and commentators. The debatable problem is strictly about chronological coherence in relation to the facially evident message delivered. As such, several sources innately aver that the message is to listen, which is the word we are left with by our new Eve as she is about to address the global viewing population. There have been various interpretations of that so-called message that actually walk along the precipice of the actual message, but then inexplicably apply too much importance upon the vagaries of that last word at the linear conclusion of the flick before the credits roll. To that larger theme, AI, Google, and various YouTubers have also fairly latched on to the paramount subtext about empathy. whether acting as part of the propagandistic machinations of theoretical global overlords or as pedantic rubes conditioned by collectivist claptrap, the theme regarding empathy is explored from an approving disposition. An approving disposition. In the film itself, we are indeed told that humanity's developmental evolution as an enlightened species, ostensibly meant to ascend to the stars as part of a wider cosmic family of peaceable sentient neighbors, is purportedly thwarted by our rejection of the meaning of life itself. Empathy. Although not the first to even make the point within recent memory, Ben Shapiro, okay, so as I'm writing this, people, I'm cognizant of the fact that let me rewrite that. Let me rephrase that. That the political left has gone on a truly anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish anyway, because Semites are more than the Jewish people or the Hebrew people, but an anti-Jewish and not just simply an anti-Zionist or anti-Israel insanity. Okay, you've gone off the tracks. But there is a segment of the political right that has done so too. Now, I would argue that it's definitely not as much of the political right as our political rivals would have people believe. And I speculate that it's probably not quite as expansive, on the left. Among the young left, I'm fairly certain that's probably an accurate counting. Among older, maybe not so much, but since I'm not a leftist, I couldn't begin to tell you. I don't get invited to their picnics, people, so I don't know what they're talking about. So I was cognizant of the fact that Ben Shapiro, for more than one reason, but especially because he's a very outspoken Jewish conservative, and he is a Zionist, which is to simply say he's politically in support of the nation state of Israel to exist as a blah, 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 blah. All right. Because of that disposition, I know that he's not quite as popular as he was before October 7th a couple of years ago. 3 years ago now? 2 or 3 years? But I left this in there because, it's thematically, factually accurate. So just swim with the current, people. Okay, although not the first to even make the point within recent memory, Ben Shapiro noted several years ago that he can reasonably sympathize with others and, within a limited framework, even empathize with the precious few. He rightly postulated that there is nothing fundamentally fallacious or deleterious about making personal decisions and/or pursuing particular courses of action, however trivial or profound, pursuant such emotional attributes within the microcosm of one's limited sphere of influence. Public policy, geopolitical diplomacy, international trade, and even acts of warfare are not, he wisely warned, amenable to such irrational and situationally fluid, i.e., manipulatable emotionalism. Appeals to emotion are subject to histrionic repudiations of clearly established laws of physics, biology, psychology, economics, and even ecological sustainability. I'm not sure I love my wording there, to be honest with you. I'm not sure I'll have to take another look at that for the published written version of this. Needless to say, I meant to say, if it's well or not, but I'm not going to beat myself up again like I got the other thing wrong. Histrionic appeals to emotionalism are easily debunked by simple logic and maintaining one's control and not acting a fool. And that applies to all those different categories. And those are broad categories, so they encompass a lot of things beneath them, a lot of umbrella terms, but I'm sure we can even come up with other umbrella terms. So that's what I mean to say. In other words, if you act hysterical, you're probably not thinking clearly. Emotionalism is just no way to make important decisions, people. Not that emotions are unimportant, but, it's reason and instinct. In the aggregate and or macrocosm of human civilization, the problem is pragmatically relegated to the issue of scale. Therefore, the issue is not one of the Satanic Bible's modified golden rule, page 51, rather the suicidal empathy. Dr. Gad Saad's new book, Suicidal Empathy, which I had on pre-order and got it the day they said it would come out. Boom, boom. I know he's a Lebanese Jew living in Canada. Ooh, frankly, I like Dr. Gad Saad, but if I was to bust his chops about anything, it'd be like being Canadian. I've known people from Lebanon that I thought were particularly cool and great and wonderful people, and I've known lots of Jews that I like. Well, I've known lots of Jews I don't like, and I've known Israelis I like and Israelis I don't like. But of those three things, if you people are going to be bigoted, I say be bigoted because he lives in Canada. So, okay. All right. Rather, the suicidal empathy threatening us all is found within the Bible's so-called golden rule, Matthew 7:12. It is one expressed in the famous anecdote about the frog agreeing to transport a scorpion across a river to, ideally, save both of their lives. Ultimately, they both perish, though, don't they? When the scorpion stings the frog midway to safety and causes them each to drown. While sinking into the depths, the frog asks the scorpion why they had condemned them both to death. You know, I mean, you just didn't kill me. You killed yourself. All you had to do was let me get to the other side before disappearing into the depth or disappearing into the deep. The scorpion reminded the frog that they knew the unavoidable peril of accepting such a passenger. Ergo, the frog was responsible for their own unnecessary demise because the scorpion had simply acted in accord with its biological nature. All right, okay. It is this disconnect between rational self-interest and suicidal empathy that inescapably results in widespread cognitive dissonance, which is sometimes called mass formation psychosis. That in-group mob mentality invariably leads to the us versus them targeting of members of one's out-group for marginalization, re-education, incarceration, and even genocidal extermination. Whoa! Okay. So, irrationally, when self-interest and or self-preservation are threatened and the would-be manifest destiny of one's biological and or spiritual hardwiring to survive and thrive are asserted as either a microcosmic or macrocosmic expression of one's fight or flight survival mechanism, those that nefariously and or ignorantly demand their compliance with their own subjugation and or elimination from the actual social and or genetic diversity of life react vociferously by insisting that their compulsory self-sacrifice is required as some nebulous reparations paid with empathetic socioeconomic disenfranchisement, cultural replacement, and or genetic extinction of their unique meritocratic hierarchical lineage. In the USA, the political faction espousing this collectivist creed, openly calling for the immolation of Western civilization, is that of the Democrat Party, so-called Democrat Party. Whatever. I'm not a fan of democracy, so I'm a fan of the democratic process and Republican government. The will of the people, a government by and for the people. So, okay. One still powerful force within what Barack Hussein Obama defined in his unmistakable Marxist rhetoric as a coalition of the disenfranchised is Hillary Clinton, or as my president, President Donald J. Trump, used to call her, Crooked Hillary Clinton. Lest anyone dare discount her reference here, it was only on January 29th of this year, 2026, that she published her essay, MAGA's War on Empathy in the Atlantic. As a rally against the facts, don't care about your feelings, that's another Ben Shapiro reference. As a rally against the facts, don't care about your feelings majority of the electorate that remains at least viscerally, if not always ideologically aware of the common sense political platform of kitchen table and work-related water cooler issues versus the divide and conquer politics of fear proffered by the woke identity politics of what Anton LaVey denounced as a cult of victimhood. It is Clinton and her Saul Alinsky ilk that politicizes in the empty name of empathy. Now, I also want to pause a moment and make another note that's not in my notes, but okay, so anytime I reference the Satanic Bible, or anytime I reference LaVeyan canon, I'm not a yes man, and the Satanic Bible is not scripture. It's not sacrosanct, okay? We don't look at it like that. And I'm not a sycophant. I know, sycophants unite, but I'm not. I merely concur with that man on like 99.9% of things, right? There's a couple of things that we don't, but I mean, that batting average is, superior to most others, so there we go. So when I reference him, it's because he is sort of the home plate. He's the recognizable cultural icon of the satanic discourse within the paradigm of modern contemporary Satanism. Okay, so that's all I'm doing. If that's an issue for you, well, okay, that's an issue for you. But now you know. It is that same gaggle of what the Soviet Union labeled as useful idiots that burns down American cities and European cities and attacks and even murders and politically assassinates the other that would dare not kneel subserviently before the dictates of Big Brother in a Pavlovian response to some current thing, PSYOP buzzword. I need to pause again, too. There is a history. And there's a great book by Dr. Pax. Pax Fernald. What's his name? Gosh darn it. It's a Scandinavian name. Faxneld. Dr. Per Faxneld. I don't pronounce it very well, but I've read several of his books. Excellent. Anyway, he has a fantastic book called Satanic Feminism, and it is a really great history of the feminism, of course, within a Luciferian and satanic context, left-hand path context, because those are all slightly delineated. There's overlap, okay, but they're not all uniform. But the history of socialism, socialist Satanism, that exists, and of course, feminism is socialism, is cultural Marxism. So, and he's not doing it as a hit piece, and if anything, maybe a slightly of a cheerleader for it, because he does refer to himself as a feminist in the introduction or something. But it's an academic book, truly, I think, pretty even keeled. You don't get a lot of one way or the others. It's opinionated. It's not that kind of thing. He doesn't editorialize. Anyway, I say this because I'm not denying that there's a socialist strain of Satanism that exists historically at all. But the current strain of satanic socialism is just anathema to me, and to, frankly, my generation and the generation before me of Satanists, that we just, and yes, there were lefty Satanists then too. I mean, there's every brand of political ideology, but I'm saying, at least my personal experience, which is rather vast, I'd say center-right libertarian, not per se conservative, depending on how you define that, because then now we can argue about that, but center-right libertarian. Anyway, returning specifically to the movie, Disclosure Day, we must not undervalue, I'm sorry, again, I said it's anathema. Yeah, please don't be confused and think that these crazy lefties are representative of Satanism. Now, I'm not an activist. I don't care. If you want to misrepresent me, I don't know. Whatever. Okay. Yeah, I run the world, and we eat babies. I mean, got a bone stuck in my tooth. If you want to believe insane things, believe insane things, and believe in aliens giving you the probe. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but they don't represent me in any way, shape, or form. So I'm not a big fan of that, and I'm eager for that little trend to go away. Okay, so returning specifically to the movie Disclosure Day, we must not undervalue the singular word left with us on the big screen: listen. Nevertheless, we must not fail to see the forest for the trees. Throughout the film, we are exposed to the message that our would-be new Eve, Margaret, initially delivered to local Kansas City TV viewers tuned in to her weather report, which is presented as a trance-like vocal intonation of clicking sounds and related unintelligible noises. So, when I was writing this, I was thinking of that old episode. I think season 1, maybe season 2 or 3, I don't know, of South Park, Starvin' Marvin, click, click, clunk. Okay. That first message is not delivered only once at the end of the flick, but is repeatedly, albeit not excessively, quoted. We are told to not fear that which we do not understand. Circumstantially, that is sober advice to be heeded. Outside the proper context of what many Satanists and other philosophy-minded individuals refer to as rational self-interest, that same bumper sticker phrase is the poisonous recipe for a lethal, depopulating feast of suicidal empathy. The totality of the fact evidence therefore presents us with a message delivered and translated by a coalition of prophets, arguably breaking the fourth wall of fiction in the personage of Spielberg himself. We are told to listen to them and the higher or supreme beings. There was a moment in the movie where somebody was talking about how there's going to be a mass loss of faith because people are struggling enough with whether or not there is a supreme being, the Godhead, and now we're just going to go ahead and willy-nilly tell everybody, okay, not only is there a supreme being, there's a race of supreme beings, and they're here, and and we're not unique in the universe as God's special little pet or something. So I can't remember if they use, because I think I heard the term higher being or higher power in there once or twice, and then there was supreme being or supreme power. So they may have been both. That's why I used them both. So go watch the movie. It's a kick-ass movie. So go watch the movie, and then you can report back to me. Let me know. Use the bat phone. Okay, so let me start this paragraph again. The totality of the fact evidence therefore presents us with a message delivered and translated by a coalition of prophets, arguably breaking the fourth wall of fiction in the personage of Spielberg himself. We are told to listen to them and the higher or supreme beings presenting the message through the intermediaries of their prophetic ambassadors to the human race. That message is that we must not fear what we do not understand, because that fear prevents us from progressing as a species. To wit, the so-called agenda of the progressive Obama is alternately referred to by some as a coalition of the ascendant. What is it that the film's message tells us is the very key. What is it that the film's message tells us is the very key to our species' global and cosmic ascendance? In a word, empathy. We allegedly reject empathy because we purportedly fear it and or one another in a seemingly illogical manner as an expression of our presumed fear in the form of multitudinous manifestations of supposed divisive bigotry. In the matrix of our perceptible reality, off of the big screen, the Democrat Party and their international comrades accuse everyone that disagrees with them logically, philosophically, scientifically, and even unthinkingly in accord with their biological survival skills of an endless array of phobias and isms. Doing so, they call their political rivals all sorts of epithets that usually end in "is." Contemporary religious Satanists that are ideologically aligned with what the Satanic Bible and Levian canon in toto actually says versus what they want to misinterpret it to mean as a means of pathetic confirmation bias, scoff derisively at such infantile name-calling. We do not have phobias regarding philosophical disagreements and reject the premise on its face. Period. If we respectively have an ism or are some brand of ist, we respectively have the chutzpah to defend and stand by that disposition. Most of us arguably are not some iteration of an ism, and therefore are not some incarnation of an ist, and are simply immune to such culture war, smoke, and mirrors. Go blow it up somebody else's hindquarters. I guess it works on them. Further, we hate a few with a whole heart and love a few with a whole heart. We are therefore generally indifferent to the vast sum of humanity. We mindfully endeavor to think and act more often than not in accord with rational self-interest on both a microcosmic and macrocosmic scale. With a qui bono, i.e., who benefits mindset, such religious Satanists are unlikely to engage in the sort of environmental, interpersonal, socio-political, and/or other forms of phobic isms as self-immolating and nihilistic ists that the faux empathy crowd would have their useful idiots believe about anyone daring not to lick the boot that aches to kick their teeth out of their respective mouths. If evil or fascist this makes us, then evil or fascist we are. And so what of it? It merely means that we are ladies and gentlemen with standards that refuse to yield to subpar living conditions demanded of us by violence-prone humans presenting with inferior intellectual and emotional intelligence as stormtroopers dumb enough to rebrand themselves as anti-fascist. And I didn't write it here because I don't want to write a book for people. But look, the longitudinal evidence is gigantic. It's voluminous. Okay, leftists overwhelmingly statistically have a statistical probability and are statistically significantly shown to suffer from mental illness. Higher still within that demographic are leftist females. Also, the studies show that the average center-right person understands the political platform and arguments presented by the political left. But the vast sum, not the average, the vast sum of people on the political left do not know how to, they do not comprehend and do not know how to express. They don't know how to articulate. They can't think through and explain the political platform of people in the center-right because they look at us as aliens because they live in a bubble of confirmation bias and never bother to exercise their mind in a little scrimmage or a little sparring match of point counterpoint. They simply regurgitate talking points. And I know I'm pontificating that. I know I'm asserting that, and that I sound like a big meanie. But the data is there, people. And I don't play the data game. I'm all about point, counterpoint. I always challenge my assumptions. But, we also all live in the world. I don't see a lot of center-right people burning down cities and killing people for thinking differently with them. One of the, have them homeless and jobless and lose their kids and blah, 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 blah. We see that on one side of the ideological debate, shall we say, in the marketplace of ideas. Okay. A successful PSYOP rarely beats us over the head. Rarely. I didn't say never. I said rarely. Okay. As for the message in Disclosure Day, it is rather clearly, albeit subtly, articulated. Therefore, if it presents an intentional subtextual and or subliminal message, be it aimed in one direction or another, then that would-be PSYOP has objectively failed to influence either my mind or my analytical life script. All it has succeeded in accomplishing is entertaining me for a couple of hours and allowing me to pontificate on matters of political science as a broad reaction to online chatter trying to understand the film. In conclusion, it is my opinion that most reviewers have and shall continue to fail to fully decode the message because most people, although hardworking and great neighbors, are simply unfit for such textual and symbolic analysis. Don't overthink it, people. That's my job. Just go and watch the movie. It's a damn good movie. I liked it. My wife liked it. Popcorn was delicious, buttery and salty. It was a good time. All right, people. Hey, the death of Robin Hood on the 19th. All right. People of the internet, go do where we are. Where are we? There we go. Go do devil stuff. All right. See you later, alligator.
Warning. The system has become unstable.